Hey there, Rat fans. It's me, John Cross from the After Movie Diner. Yet another bearded, middle-aged man sitting in front of his physical media collection, banging on about movies to you online. I don't know what to say. It is who I am. Anyway, I don't know if you remember, but a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about The Dream Team as a movie that people don't talk about very much. So this is the second one of those videos. And today's movie is the Michael Caine and Ben Kingsley starring. Wow, those are some heavy hitter names, I hear you cry. That's right. Why haven't I heard of this movie? Do you know what? I am without a clue as to why you haven't heard about this movie, because it's possibly the best Ben Kingsley and the best Michael Caine film of all time. And people are screaming at me and saying, you know, what about Get Carter and what about Gandhi? What are we talking about? The Sneakers? That's a fantastic one. So what's Without a Clue, I hear you cry? Just get to the point, John, with enough of this babbling. Basically, Without a Clue is the phenomenal pairing of The Odd Couple and Sherlock Holmes and Watson. The premise is staggeringly simple, but it's also one of those premises where you're like, why did no one else think about this? For people who know Sherlock Holmes lore, they know that Watson is the voice of the stories. He is the one who is writing the stories, almost like a journalist. Arthur Conan Doyle, writing the pieces, would write them in Watson's voice. In all of the media depictions of Sherlock Holmes is always the hyper-intelligent one, while Watson is portrayed anywhere on the scale from like bumbling, mustachioed fool all the way through to never Holmes' equal, but the humanity that Holmes needs next to him in order to truly solve cases. And then there are others like the Jeremy Brett, where Watson veers between a sleazy perv whenever a woman comes into 221 Baker Street, or indeed someone who, again, is essential for Holmes to be able to do what he needs to do. And I pretty much like all iterations of Sherlock Holmes. There are very few iterations I don't like. I even like the Guy Ritchie one with Robert Downey Jr. It's not really Sherlock Holmes. It's more like Indiana Holmes and the Adventure of the Lost plot, but whatever. It's a lot of fun. It's rollicking. You know, they're trying to bring action and fighting back to Holmes, even though that's not what he's about. I like the Enola Holmes series that they've been doing on Netflix. Perfectly good adaptation and continuation of the mythology. I'm weirdly enough, as someone who is a big fan of Sherlock Holmes and who grew up absolutely devouring the books and the TV shows and everything else, I'm not a stickler for it. Do whatever you want with the world. Do expand the world. Do whatever. I've no problem with that at all. I'm not a purist. When I was at that prime age of just wanting to watch all Sherlock Holmes things that were out in the world. And at the time in Britain, there was a TV show that has become sort of the Rolls Royce of Sherlock Holmes, which is the Jeremy Brett, originally David Berg, and then Edward Hardwicke as Watson series, where they basically did all of the books and all of the short stories as authentically as possible. And that came out right at that impressionable age when I was reading the books and everything like that. It was perfect timing. So I was all Sherlock Holmes as a kid, and anything with Sherlock Holmes I had to go see. Well, Without a Clue came out in 1988, and I vividly remember it was Guildford, the old Guildford Cinema in Guildford, Surrey in England, which used to be at the top of the high street, not down by the river where it is now, but at the top of the high street. And my sister was taking me to the cinema, which was a rare occasion. I don't remember going to the cinema with my sister all too often, but it is a lovely memory that is seared into my brain, mainly because she wanted to go see Cocoon the Return, and I wanted to go see Without a Clue. Now, if you've listened, no disrespect to the fans of The Return out there, the ones that claim that Cocoon the Return really takes the Cocoon franchise to a place that Cocoon 1 just couldn't muster. Look, I love you guys. If you're all about Cocoon the Return, have at it. But I think history has proven, maybe not in the zeitgeist as I would like, but Without a Clue, definitely the better movie. What's funny is I remember coming out of this with my sister, and we had both really, really enjoyed it. However, I don't remember if she then went and watched Cocoon the Return and was like, actually, Cocoon the Return's better. I've only seen Cocoon the Return once, whereas I've seen Without a Clue hundreds of times. It's one of those movies that me and my friend John Wallace, who I grew up with, it was one that we just would endlessly quote. We rented it all the time once it came out on rental. We owned it once we could own it. We recorded it off TV. It was just endlessly quotable. So, what's the plot? All right, very quickly, the plot is this. As I was saying, Watson in the stories is the one that narrates the stories. He's the one who's writing it down. Well, this movie presupposes that actually he's the intelligent one and that he was writing these stories for the Strand magazine about stuff that was kind of coming out of his head. And then people started to clamor. And this is also what I love about this movie is the comedy kind of comes from what happened in London in Victorian England at that time, which was people started to clamor for Sherlock Holmes. They started to believe, he was real. And the movie presupposes that Watson can't get anywhere saying, look, I'm the intelligent one. Like, you should just I'm basically Sherlock Holmes. He had to go and find someone to play Sherlock Holmes. So he goes and finds a washed up, drunk actor played by Michael Caine to play the part of Sherlock Holmes. They live together in 221B Baker Street. He feeds Sherlock Holmes all his lines, and Watson does all the detecting. Sherlock Holmes basically distracts Scotland Yard and Lestrade and other people like that so that Dr. Watson can really do all the clue hunting, and then Watson tells Holmes what to say to the press and the police. So it's this odd couple situation. Michael Caine is like an alcoholic drunkard, layabout, can't get anything right, room's a mess, the whole bit. And Watson is the neat, buttoned up, intelligent, clever, big science projects, etc., kind of character. So you've got your odd couple set up with your prim and proper guy and your messy guy, but you've got it as Sherlock Holmes and Watson. But then you have a real case that comes about that involves Moriarty, which is obviously he is the only one who knows that Watson is the real threat. And then you've got this wonderful buddy action comedy where Michael Caine has to sober up and figure it out because he's got to crack the case and save Watson and everything else. I'm not going to spoil it too much, but it's fun. It's got a great mystery. It's got a great action comedy buddy cop kind of premise. It's got the odd couple set up. It's got great quotable lines. It's got a fantastic cast of all sorts of that guys, both from England and from America. And most importantly, one of the reasons I'm so drawn to media depictions of Sherlock Holmes is I love all that stuff. The carriages going down cobbled streets in London and bread sellers on the side of the road and the news barkers. Read all about it. These guys. I love that kind of Dickensian, Victorian, Sherlock Holmesian kind of London vibe. Whenever they put it on screen, I'm just yes, I love this. The gas lamps and, the big mustaches and the top hats and all that. I just love all that. It was never one necessarily for kind of costume dramas and the stuff that was set in big stately homes and stuff. But God, I loved stuff set in London. I love Oliver, the musical. I love Sherlock Holmes and I love Jack the Ripper stuff and all that kind of era with just give me all of that, but just inject it right into my veins. And this has all of that and more. Incredibly funny, incredibly well acted. It's despite it completely playing with the Sherlock Holmes lore, it's also incredibly faithful to kind of the story behind the Sherlock Holmes lore. Yes, this is better than Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. And should I tell you why? Because the only bits in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels people really want to see is the Ruprecht bit and maybe the bit where he's in the wheelchair and Caine keeps hitting his legs. But apart from that, in general, there are vast bits of Dirty Rotten Scoundrels that are not as sort of wacky and funny and quotable as they should be. Without a Clue, on the other hand, has all the wacky, has all the quotable, has all the adventure, has all the action, has all the silliness, has all the bizarreness, has all the surrealism, has all the costume drama, has all the Holmesian vibes, everything that you want, but with two powerhouses, Ben Kingsley and Michael Caine, deciding to just play the comedy straight in the best possible way. I mean, yeah, of course, Caine hams it up when he becomes a bit of a alcoholic. He kind of goes into his educating Rita bit, which is fine. In general, the way this is played and the cast that they have, Absolutely fantastic. If you haven't seen it, or if you haven't even heard of it, check out Without a Clue. Olive Films did give it a Blu-ray. I don't know if this is still out in the world. If you can find it, find it. If you can't, rent it, stream it, illegally download it, watch Without a Clue. It's great.